So I'm just going to show you a couple of some collisions that happened in the NFL, some big hits. So you guys get the point. But okay, so a lot of us NFL fans crave these big hits. But what if I told you that 99% of studied NFL players have CTE because of those collisions? I played football for 7 years, and I have a lot of friends who play football currently, and so I've been looking into it I've been looking into this issue the last couple weeks because I have 6 players that play Division I football, and coincidentally 5 of those players have suffered at least 1 concussion over their days. So today I'm going to elaborate on 2 major parts of this, and one of them is what's going on in today's NFL in terms of concussions and CTE or brain trauma. And then 2, the extent of how much damage is actually being done to these players. CTE here. CTE is, so one thing that's going on that's big in the NFL right now is that it's not a recognized condition under the concussion class action settlement. And basically what that means is that, so if you play in the NFL for any time, you get health care for the rest of your life. And what that means is that, so head trauma is not being covered for NFL players. And last year that issue actually made it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the court denied petitions to challenge the settlement. So they still said that concussions or head trauma is not covered in health care for them, and a few hundred of players have opted out of the settlement, meaning that they can continue to pursue legal claims against the NFL because they obviously want that covered because it's a pretty big issue. And they've made rule changes in the NFL to kind of prevent this, and if you lead with your head in a dangerous way, you will be ejected from the game, you'll be fined, and your team will be penalized. And in 2015, there were 275 reported concussions, and it actually went down to 244 last year. So the rule changes have made a little bit of an impact, but it's still a pretty big issue in the NFL. And so now I'm going to talk more about how it actually affects these players and to what extent. According to a study done by Boston University, 110 out of 111 deceased brains that were NFL players had CTE. And here, I'll show you a diagram. On the right is a brain that has CTE, and on the left is just a normal one. And I mean, CTE can only be diagnosed after death, but some of the symptoms of this condition are memory loss, confusion, aggression, depression, and eventually dementia. And so, according to Monroe Cullum, a professor of neurology at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center, they did a study where 28 NFL players took a memory test versus just 20 volunteers who did not play football. And obviously the retired NFL players performed far worse on the test, suggesting that their histories of concussion affects them pretty greatly. And so there's been a few weeks in, there's already been 14 concussions in the NFL today. So, which actually isn't as much as I thought there would be. So obviously they're making a little bit of progress, but I guess we'll just see how the rest of the year carries out. Today I told you about what's happening today in the NFL and some of the research effects of concussions. And I think it's pretty safe to say that most of us enjoy the big hits of the NFL, but I just think it's important to realize the effects that those hits have on these guys, because those guys have families too. So.
Okay, really quick, what would you say?